So we're going to do a little bit of chainsawing today. Right here we got the bar chain oil for the summertime. I think in here, by accident, I stored winter bar chain oil in it. Winter bar chain oil is thinner, so it doesn't get too thick and not be able to lubricate the machine when it's super cold out. The last time I used this was in the winter, so put it on my shelf. Guess what happened in the summer? The thinner oil became so thin, it leaked right out of the oiler. It filled this entire thing up with oil. That was hard to pull off because of it. This whole thing is full of oil. I gotta let drain out of it. And yeah, there's oil all over the place. And I just discovered a little puddle of oil on the floor in here. It just completely leaked out of it. So I learned if I use it in the winter, gotta drain the oil out of it. But the summer stuff, there shouldn't ever be a problem with that. I think I have enough fuel today for today's job. I'll go to the gas station and get more later on. I always use 91 octane because it's ethanol free. You want to only put ethanol free in your small engines, lawnmowers, snow blowers, generators, because they often sit for a long time and ethanol gunks up inside the carburetor where you have to clean it and the machines are going to have problems not starting. So we use ethanol free. Then it doesn't leave residue, the machines start up easier. And also a lot of small machines like the higher the higher octane content. So right here we got the fuel. There's barely any in there. Now I noticed that this better machine has a better gas tank, so it doesn't leak fumes. The other ones, it becomes not flammable enough. And what happens is, you go to start it a couple months later, it starts up. As soon as you go to put any weight on the engine, it stalls. Can't even move the chain. And that's because the fuel went bad. So sometimes we have to just dump it out if it was stored with fuel in it. But at least it's not leaving behind any residue. That's the good thing. So we're going to top it off with fuel now. I bought this commercial chainsaw about almost a year ago because all my residential ones just weren't cutting it for all the trees. We had over 50 trees come down last winter during a storm, and this was to keep up with it. It's got bigger teeth than a residential one, so that means it cuts through everything way faster. I can't even get my fingers underneath this one. I might need a screwdriver to pry this. Yeah, it's like glued. Maybe this nail right here will work, or this screw. Get underneath there. Nope. It's a tough one. No, I'm lifting the wrong thing. I'm stupid. There we go. I'm glad that I can open these because on my old chainsaw they're seized. You have to use a pair of pliers to get that thing off. Alright, time to fill it up. Always make sure this is topped off before you start it. The lubrication is more important than the fuel. Alright, topped off. And I learned when I go through a fuel tank, there's always a good amount of this still left, because that's the more important part. Yeah, this thing leaked so much of its winter oil. Look at the blade, just covered in oil all over the place. How much do we got on the machine? I don't see barely any on the machine, but I can quickly wipe that up with a paper towel so it doesn't become covered in sawdust. You see how I put my pants over my boot? Otherwise, boots, they fill up with so much sawdust, and I find these way better than sneakers. They got a steel toe inside them, great for this work. I'm gonna go ahead and get my chaps on in case I slip, it doesn't go through my leg, because this got way bigger teeth, it'll hurt a lot more. And then as soon as we're done chainsawing, I'm going to go ahead with my file, run it across every single blade just twice, do it every time you use it, and then you don't have to go through the hassle of taking like an entire hour to do it at the end of the month. So we're all fueled up, all oiled up. We don't need to bring the guard with us out into the woods. I'm going to go ahead and wipe that off with a paper towel, put it upright in the trash can, try to get as much of it. Oh, look at all the oil coming out of there. Yep, that thing is just full of oil, and it got all over the floor. I wiped up what I could. The rest of it soaked into the concrete. Not a big deal. It's not much. Yeah, got a paper towel here. Wipe off the little bit I can. The rest of that will come off the bar when we start cutting things up. Look at the oil all over the grass right there. And now I'm going to take a little bit here. And we're just going to leave this leaning against something so as much can come out as possible. And maybe we can use that later on, those oily paper towels, to start a fire or something. So this is what I was talking about. This is the winter stuff. It's very thin, and if you leave it in there during the summer, the oilers, it just leaks all over the place. So this is where the Husqvarna was sitting on the shelf. To see this oil all over the bars. You look down in here, look at that. There's a puddle of oil on top of these containers of salt. Good amount of oil there. And you see it continue leaking onto the floor. I discovered it weeks ago. That's why it doesn't look super fresh. Tried wiping it up, but slowly it's going away, that mark, as it sinks into the concrete. Oh yeah, this tamper was covered in it too. I remember I had to really wipe that off. I had to wipe the mallet off. That dripped on everything slowly over the course of the summer. Wow, more than I expected. Look at that. I already got to replace the paper towel before we head out into the woods. Wow. Now we're ready to go. All right, everyone. So we have just walked out into the woods to our propane tank camp. Never actually set up a tent here, but I think I might this week. Right here, this tree fell down about a year ago. Left it because it makes a good bench in front of the fire pit. So this is an old propane tank that was left at my house. And the company, AmeriGas, I asked them, do you want your tank back? They said, nope, not unless you pay the outstanding balance on your propane. Well, that wasn't me. So they didn't get their tank back, and I made it into a wood stove. So we can load this thing up with a bunch of debris, and we can cook on it. Just put a grate up on top of it. We'll remove the little cap, and that should heat really well. Use it as a grill. Right here is a pretty flat area for a tent, but I think it's too close to this for flying and dropping sparks. So right here I think would be a good spot for a tent. Even camping here a few days wouldn't have really affect the moss. So here we'll try to clean this area up right here. It's nice and flat. It'll be nice and soft with all this moss. And this is one tree we never took care of from last year's giant storm. See, there's a lot of debris still out here, but we also took care of a whole bunch of it. This portion of the property is a animal refuge on paper. So that means this area here, I've pledged not to cut this forest down, log it. We're just maintaining it. Anything that falls down is what we cut up and we haul back for firewood. Right here, we're gonna get this trail open. This tree fell down last year. I don't know if it's seasoned enough to split. I am basically interested in just cutting this up, getting this trail back open, and all these branches, I'll make sure to cut them into small enough pieces with the chainsaw to fit into the wood stove. And down here, we'll try dicing all this stuff here into smaller pieces, just chop, chop, sideways chop, chop. And we have another pile over here I'm also going to try dicing. Just be careful not to hit the ground. You hit the ground with a chainsaw, your blade is dull immediately as it hits little things like sand. It's like sandpaper against the blades. So right here we'll go chop, 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 sideways chop, chop, chop. Then we should be able to throw most of that into the stove. But let's get the chainsaw going and we'll get this trail back open. If we zoom in, you can see nice mossy trail, and in the background is the bridge where we always have the trail camera going. There's also a water feeding station there. Way back in the woods, you see a bunch of log piles. There was a blowdown of over 50 trees last year. The good news is the forest has replanted itself. There's little seedlings all over that clearing. It should fill in pretty fast. All right, everyone. What I just did right there made a huge difference. That big pile, it's just about gone now. With that big pile, seedlings can't grow. It's blocking all the sunlight. It's like gonna be a dead area for a very long time. But now doing that, next year seedlings can start growing out of there. And it's in tiny pieces now that can be collected and thrown in the wood stove. But now that they're close to the ground, they can rot faster, rot back into nutrition for new trees to grow. All right. Good enough. We're all done chainsawing today at this campsite. Now it can sit there and rot. Eventually, now that it's low to the ground, the moss can start growing over it easier. Or we can burn it. Doesn't really matter what happens. This whole campsite, the ground wasn't covered in moss in the spring. It's because we had one of the wettest summers ever. Moss took over. Moss grows on all this dead stuff, helps break it down faster. A wet year really helps get rid of debris in the forest. All those logs I just created are the right size to fit into the wood stove in the house, or they'll probably be used out here. I don't know if they're seasoned yet, probably not. That tree just fell down less than a year ago, so we could use them out here even if they're wet. It's pine, it burns always pretty well. We'll just hit them with the axe. But we got drier stuff for this year. I just want to stack that and get all the debris over there so we don't puncture the tent and we're not sleeping on prickly, stabby things. This is a perfect spot for a tent. We just have to spend like 20 minutes cleaning up every little branch in this area. Then we'll put down a tarp, put the tent on top of it. All right, we are back to the garage. Just gotta step over a couple things. Get over here to the toolbox. I opened the wrong drawer. Just one off. These are the files for the chainsaw. Like I said, every time I'm done using it, just file them a little bit, keep it in top-notch shape, then it's always super sharp for every job. Because I don't want to go back to the chainsaw in like 6 months and have to do this ahead of time. I always try to make my parts last as long as possible. I already super glued this twice. I just dropped the thing in. Oh well, I'm just gonna have to get another. Come on here to the blade. They're already still super sharp, but they could be a little sharper. Now they make 3 different size files like this. This chainsaw has the bigger teeth. Now they do make chainsaws with super duper cheap, but they're not what you would say a production size. So right here, you just want to keep the same exact angle. 1, 2, and now some people will tell you you have to turn it as you're going. No, that's why this thing has a turn already through it. You don't have to do that. And you got the other way. I haven't done this in months. I gotta get the hang of it again. Just gotta get myself into a nice rhythm. Not in a good rhythm yet. Did that one backwards. I know someone's going to criticize me. Someone always does. But I've been filing it this way every single use for the past year, and it just works. And now we got to move the chain. The one we left off at, put it around the corner. Be careful moving it, because those are sharp enough it'll just cut right through your finger. Going good. Yeah, even holding on to the ones I haven't sharpened yet feels like it's going to cut my finger, because it's already super duper sharp. Now there shouldn't be many more to do now. Feeling. Do I notice any? I may have missed one, but we'll get it next time. You look up really close. See that tiny little line right here? That's how much you can file until you have to get a new blade. But just in case I ever broke a blade or had to really go and do something, I always keep at least one spare. It's been hours, so this thing should be done with the oil coming out of it. We didn't do much today, but every now and then, if this thing is ever having problems running, simplest thing here, there might be stuff stuck inside of here. The air filter, which is, where is it on this model? Oh, you gotta take these straps right here. You gotta pull the whole top off to get to the air filter. Sometimes that has to be banged out. Sometimes you have to go ahead and pull these bolts right here. That's also how you tighten your chain up right there with that screw. Sometimes you want to pull this whole thing off. You gotta clean out the clutch. That can also make it not work properly. No, that's the chain tightener right there. thinking of another machine. I get confused because I have a couple machines and they all tighten in a different way. All right, we got that cleaned up nicely. Now we did have to tear up a little bit of the moss because the moss literally started crawling over some of that stuff and it got scraped up. This is peat moss, it grows really fast. That'll take over again within a year. It'll look like a carpet once again. Honestly, a lot of this wasn't even here before this year because of the rain. Those logs are still extremely wet. That tree is basically still alive, even though it was laying on its side, so that's gonna have to season for a while. It would burn in a campfire, but it would be smoky and hard to split. To run the wood stove, we're not using it for heating or anything, just for cooking. So we can just keep throwing little pieces of scrap in there, feeding it. We don't need it to go long term without touching it. We'll burn all this pile that we just scraped up off the ground. It's nice, flat, nothing to puncture the tent. The ground with all the moss is very mushy to begin with, and combined with the sawdust, we're definitely going to put down a tarp. Then you don't have to worry about the tent getting wet, going into your tent. You don't have to worry about cleaning dirt and mud off the tent afterwards, because it's all on the tarp. You can just spray off with a garden hose afterwards. So tonight, we're not going to be camping here. I just wanted to clean this up. I plan on doing a camping video here maybe next week. And yeah, this place is ready whenever I need to find a nice place to camp. So we got all that cleaned up nicely. And yeah, perfect. This weekend we're supposed to have a big tropical storm. I don't think it's going to get inland enough where I am, but most of Massachusetts, points south all the way down to the Carolinas, are now under tropical storm warnings and watches. So I might go down there for the weekend, experience the heavy rain. Maybe we can find some floods and things, clog culverts. I've never been down further south than Virginia. Maybe we'll do that this weekend. Go on a long storm chase, or meet up with the storm and chase it back, looking for floods and stuff, just staying with it. Just a lot of rain. Maybe we'll go do that over the weekend, because it's going to rain here regardless, but we're not getting the brunt of it. So tonight's dry, tomorrow's dry, weekend is not. So maybe we'll come back here on Tuesday and camp, and the heavy rain that we are getting, it's not torrential. We're not going to be in the tropical storm, but parts of it will be here. Maybe that'll help rein in a bunch of this sawdust. The sawdust wouldn't be there. I should have been standing on the other side when I was cutting the trunk, because that could have made it fire the other way instead. But it's not a big deal. It's fine. We have so much dry kindling we can just break up and fill that firebox with. This will be nice and easy. I think this actually will be a really fun camp, because take a look at this. I'm going to have like a little step stool here up top. That'll actually be fun. You have to use like a little step stool to flip burgers and whatever. I don't know what I'm going to cook on it, honestly. I'm probably going to pick a bunch of things from the garden, and we'll have like little pots and pans up here. I got a squash. I want to try eating that next week. I'll pick it unless some rabbit or something decides to eat it first, because that's not behind the electric fence area. We also have some potatoes I gotta try digging up. That can be part of the camp video. Throw them in here when it's down to hot coals. That'll cook some potatoes, or put them up top in a frying pan after cutting them up. Potatoes. I don't know if we got onions. We got broccoli we can try steaming on here. We got a bunch of carrots we can try cooking. We'll try to make something nice with the stuff from the garden. And I hope today's video is interesting, everybody. Just cleaning up the campsite and a little bit of chainsaw maintenance. Thanks for watching, and have a great night.